Evening. I'd like to welcome you all to the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen for Wednesday, October 17th, 2022. It is wonderful to be here in person. Our last in-person Board of Selectmen meeting was in March of 2020. Thank you for wearing masks tonight as we endeavor to continue to respect each other and try to keep one another healthy, especially those who are immunocompromised or recovering from an illness. If I have learned anything during my tenure as I enter my 6th year as first selectman, we in Woodbridge do take care of each other, and I thank everyone for their kindness. I'm going to give an update on all of our projects. The Community and Cultural Center Building Committee met on September 21st with 2 architects from Silver Petroselli to review their proposal to create design construction drawings for the interior of the old firehouse and to engage Eris Land Studio to develop a conceptual master plan for the outdoor space. It's important for the outdoor and indoor space to work together from a design perspective. The committee approved the architect's proposal, and a waiver to use their services will be submitted to the state. More specific schematics will be prepared for their October meeting, and review and input from the town department heads is planned for November. A presentation will be made to the Board of Selectmen at our December meeting, with review and input from town residents planned for January. The Center Renovation Building Committee has been meeting on a periodic basis. They have revised the initial request for qualifications for architectural engineering services for this project in mid-September due to a poor initial response in early September, which was reissued out for bid on September 22nd. On October 6th, the pre-bid meeting, together with a walkthrough with those A&E firms interested in the project, occurred. Any and all questions and clarifications pertaining to the RFQ are to be submitted to the committee no later than October 20th, and they expect to receive formal proposals including proposed fees from those firms, which will be presented on Thursday, October 27th. The building committee will then carefully evaluate these proposals and are targeting to begin holding interviews with some of these firms by early to mid-November, with the goal to make a formal recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to retain the services of a specific firm and have this firm under contract by mid-December. The renovation and upgrade project at the Senior Center is well underway, with Olympus Construction and Silver Petroselli and Associates working with staff to adjust issues as they arise. Regular meetings are scheduled every 2 weeks for discussion of the ongoing construction. The demolition and initial construction have begun and are already transformative. Silver Petroselli submitted the project for review with United Illuminating to access available incentives for improving energy solutions. The good news is that the project incentive grant included $8,000 for the HVAC VRF units at $250 per ton and $1,864 for lighting design, for a total of $9,864. As the budget is very tight, these funds are a welcome addition. Most of the materials have been ordered, and work will continue while awaiting delivery. I attended the first meeting of the newly created Ad hoc Beecher School Building Committee. The committee voted with my approval to change the title of their committee to the Town Building Committee for Beecher Road School Capital Projects. They also agreed to an amendment to their charge to include necessary pool and security upgrades. You will note that we have a report from Kyle Elmy of the firm of Weston and Sampson, giving us a detailed evaluation of and recommendations from an engineer's report to improve the pool's existing conditions and bring the Beecher School pool into code compliance. As you may know, the pool was built in 1972. Also, the Woodbridge Board of Ed has a confidential report regarding a security study that was done recently, and the committee will also review that, and make recommendations regarding necessary security school upgrades. We recently received the contract documents from the state regarding the recently awarded $500,000 steep grant for the new HVAC system and gymnasium and restroom upgrades. I'll let you know once we review them and the next steps to proceed with the project. Lastly, we are working with Cardinal Engineering on the preliminary design and survey regarding the town center sidewalk project. This project most likely will be done in the summer of 2023, once school is out of session and our town center is less busy with traffic. That is update on our many projects. 6 projects going at once. It's very busy. In a recent edition of the Woodbridge Town News, there was commentary stating that I, as first selectman, did not intend to support the upcoming year's Amity Regional District 5 budget. I did support passage of the current year's budget, and I take this opportunity, as well other opportunities, to state unequivocally that I never made such a statement regarding next year's budget. I cannot imagine a situation where I would decide my vote on a budget I had not yet seen, and in this case, a budget that, as far as I know, has not yet been prepared. This inaccurate statement was misinformation about the Amity District 5 budget process. I have included in this evening's board packet an explanation written by Paul Davis, newly appointed chair of the Amity Regional District 5 Board of Education, with his statements regarding the district's budget. I remain committed that our board, as well as the Board of Finance, are fully briefed on the actual facts. Our annual Veterans Day ceremony will be held this year after a 2-year COVID hiatus at 11 a.m. on Friday, November 11th in the Center Gym. More information will be forthcoming in our newsletter and town website. Masks will be required. I have recently been informed that there might be an RWA Regional Water Authority grant available for up to $5,000 to add a water line for use by the Community Gardens folks. I spoke with Tara Stack, Community Gardens Volunteer Coordinator, and plan to meet with her and a representative from the Regional Water Authority at the end of this month to begin to explore this. This would follow the same procedure we use for the water at the dog park, where the community garden members pay the water bills directly and are responsible for the water spigot, etc. I will keep you informed on the status of this. Several months ago, Tony and I met with a clinical stage nonprofit biotechnology company called Cure Rare Disease, letting us know they were interested in moving to Woodbridge. We encouraged them to come. Cure Rare Disease develops therapeutics for rare and ultra-rare neuromuscular diseases, such as 2 rare types of muscular dystrophy, one known as Duchenne and another one Becker. I am so pleased that they have announced they will have acquired their first laboratory space in Woodbridge and will relocate their Boston headquarters to the 30,000 square foot facility at 4 Research Drive and expand research and development operations. The company also plans to lease 15,000 square feet to other life science and healthcare firms. This is great news indeed. The weather this past weekend was glorious. We had several events in town, including the 40th annual Recreation Road Race, which was postponed a week due to inclement weather. I also hope you had a chance to join in the Woodbridge Like Me Day on Sunday, sponsored by our wonderful Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I thank all the committee members for their hard work and our town staff who made this happen. Over 300 people took advantage of the spectacular weather to see so many exhibits and cultures representing our town. What a fabulous way to celebrate the diversity in Woodbridge. This afternoon I received a quick note from Ellen Skeletar, who is the chairman of this committee, and she asked that I read this. Very short. Dear First Selectwoman Heller and members of the Board of Selectmen, on behalf of the Woodbridge Ad Hoc Community on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, we are writing to express our gratitude to Mark Dutka and Carlos Torres for their exceptional work at the Woodbridge Like Me Day event this past Sunday. Mark and Carlos were efficient and available in all the setup and other assistance they provided as needed. As important, their positive attitudes and cheery dispositions added to the celebratory nature of the event, which was enjoyed by hundreds of Woodbridge residents. Please extend our gratitude to them. Signed, Ellen Skeletar, DEI Committee Chair, and Tahira Parvez, DEI Committee Vice Chair. Later on Sunday afternoon, I briefly spoke at the dedication of Allie's Dream at the JCC, which is a program founded by my dear friend Lily Vasileff, mother of a special needs young adult. It was an honor to be there, as this will now be a wonderful place to paraphrase Lily, quote, focusing on ability rather than disability by encouraging the pursuit of personal interests, which provides greater opportunities for success and creative expression, unquote. Lastly, I remind everyone to remember to vote on Tuesday, November 8th. In-person voting will be held at the Center Gym from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. The ballot includes candidates for federal offices, United States Senate, and United States House of Representatives, and other state offices. There will also be a ballot question to authorize a change in the state constitution, authorizing early voting in Connecticut elections. Absentee ballots are also available. Please contact either the Woodbridge Town Clerk's Office or the Registrar's of Voters Office for further information. Thank you. And with that, item 2, the Woodbridge Board of Education, interim superintendent Christine Syriac was not available this evening, so we move to item 3. Amity Woodbridge Historical Society, Darling House tenant lease renewals. And we have them in our packet. I believe, Jerry, you have reviewed them.
I reviewed them, they're just basically 2 minor changes from the previous year. Change the date, obviously, change the term from 13 months to 12 months, and to allow the tenant to have 2 cats rather than 1 cat. So I would
Okay.
ask that the lease be approved.
Okay, can we do them all together?
Sure.
Fine, I will make a motion that we approve I'm sorry, this is just one, sorry.
Lease, yeah.
One lease, the Amity Woodbridge Historical Society lease with Jerry's 2 changes. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or discussions? We just have to raise our hand and say aye or nay. All in favor? Aye. And is David Vogel in yet?
He is not.
Okay. So that's that. So it's unanimous from the folks that are here. Thank you. Next is the Beecher Road School. Weston, is he going to tune in? How's this going to work?
He is here.
Okay.
Okay. And where do we see him? Up there? On the screen?
I see him on my laptop.
That doesn't help us.
Can we hear
Can you
him?
hear me?
Yes.
Go.
Okay. It doesn't look like I'm a presenter too. Is that? Oh, yes I am. Must have just switched over.
Will he show up on here? Should we shut the lights out? Okay. So I will introduce via remote Kyle Elmy from Weston and Sampson. And there he is on the right, if you guys can see him. You have a copy of his report in your packets. I assume you've all had a chance to read it. Take it away, Kyle.
Okay. Thanks for the introduction. I'm Kyle Elmy from Weston and Sampson. We were hired to evaluate the current Beecherwood pool, or Beecher School pool. And, you know, I'd like to start off by saying that the maintenance staff has done a phenomenal job maintaining this facility. Typically pools constructed in this manner only last 30 to 40 years before they need to be either fully replaced or you need to do extensive rehab to keep the pool operational. And this pool is in its 50th year and still counting. You know, really, there's only a couple big items that we would recommend be addressed. So the first one would be to replace the current filters. They have broken laterals, and this prevents the pool from being operational and being used. So that would be our first recommendation. The next would be, you know, replacing the main drains and any broken fittings. One of the reasons we were hired is the pool was leaking roughly an inch of water a day. This could be due to a number of reasons. In our investigation, it's most likely due to some old fittings and maybe some minor leaks elsewhere. But by replacing the main drains and ensuring proper grounding, you eliminate the possibility of a fatal catastrophe, meaning that the whole pool kind of blows out the main drain and the basement's flooded with water. Obviously, this would be worst case scenario, but that would be something to definitely look into and replace. Also, sorry, I'm just trying to find these pictures. Can you all see my screen?
No.
Not yet. No.
Okay, maybe this.
Okay.
Okay. Now can you?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the inside of one of the main drains. So there's extensive corrosion. You can see some of it right here, and then this is your grounding wire. And then along these welding seams, there are also some more corrosion. Here, this is due to dissimilar metals within the pool, and the pool not most likely not being properly bonded. What happens is you get a formation of all the dissimilar metals just corroding due to the chlorinated water, and it further corrodes everything else within the pool. This would be the back side. Sorry, it's just taking a second to share. This would be the back side. So in here, you can see some of the rust and water that's been dripping down this main drain slowly and just leaking into this basement trough. This is efflorescence, which is essentially corroded concrete. So you can see concrete is also essentially falling apart and falling down onto this area. How do I stop sharing? Stop sharing. Okay. So the next item would be the windowsill and hatch removal. Currently, there's a deck hatch that is allowing water to seep underneath the deck and sit and pile up onto a window within the pool. This is my biggest concern in the pool at the moment, as time goes on, it's becoming more and more of a structural issue. So, and I have a couple more pictures that maybe I can. Okay, so this is looking at it from the top. So water is getting down into this trench, leaking down into here, and has started to corrode this windowsill, causing concrete to fall off the wall and water to start corroding the pool shell rebar. We can't tell from this photo or without doing extensive structural testing, but water could be seeping down the corroded rebar channel and corroding the rebar even further. Now, as this happens, the pool shell is essentially crumbling, and if it were to get to a point and the pool were to be full, the rebar, if it's no longer there and it's so far gone that it won't hold your pool shell together, and you'd have a structural failure and pretty intensive rehab to bring the pool back. Similar to this is, this is the top view of it. You can see a little better. This whole chunk is about to fall off. Luckily, the pool walls are relatively thick, roughly 12 to 16 inches. So in some areas, so it's holding together at the moment, but it's hard to tell for how long, because we can't see without taking all this off and getting in there. We can't really see how far and how extensive this damage is. Guess it didn't. Okay. Additionally, sort of paired with that is within the pool, there are rust spots that are found. And typically what happens is over time, chlorine will eat away at your pool grout. It'll erode away, and then the chlorine water will start attacking the pool shell. And when it starts to do that, a similar situation to the windowsill scenario will happen, and your pool floor or pool wall will start corroding from the inside out. After it's gotten through the concrete, it'll start attacking the rebar, and you'll end up with rust spots that are kind of the water's pulling the rust up into the pool. So what we would recommend is removing those tile sections, examining the rebar, reparging over that area, so essentially applying a skim coat of concrete, and then resetting your tile and fully grouting your pool to prevent any of that from further progressing. And then one of the other main items is we would recommend replacing most of the equipment, or not, maybe not most, but periodically replacing some of the filtration equipment to help maintenance staff better operate this pool. I mean, they've been doing a fantastic job, but pools of this size usually have a couple people that are constantly maintaining them. And it's a full-time job. So it's a lot of work and requires a lot of effort. And then there are just a couple other code issues that we would recommend being addressed. You know, on the pool deck, some of the tiles starting to delaminate. The deck drains don't drain. Not all the deck drains drain very well. And this is just a safety hazard. Does anyone have any questions?
I will turn to the board members, see if we have any questions for, go ahead, Sheila.
So first, thank you, Kyle, for your presentation, this very detailed report. It's very helpful for us to understand the scope. I was wondering if you had been able to review previous reports on the pool. We had done a big construction project over there, and some of these photos look familiar to me. I've seen versions in the past. And I wondered if there's a way to sort of compare what it looked like in 2012, 2013, the last time we had a review, to see if we're having, you know, marked degradation of our mechanicals, or whether this is sort of just in line with normal wear and tear, or if something is dramatically changing there. So I wondered if you could comment on that.
Yeah, I haven't seen those other reports. But in talking to some of the staff, they were mentioning that the pool has seen some minor upgrades throughout the years. You know, they've had those rust spots previously. Some of the mechanical equipment has been upgraded and replaced over the years. I think they just got a new pump and strainer. You know, so they're doing their due diligence to keep up with the pool. So I think the majority of these problems that you're having are just, the pools live such a long life that, you know, things are just starting to kind of pile up, and they're piling up faster and faster just because the pool is so old.
Right, so we're truly at the end of the useful life of this if we've gone the number of years we've gotten out of it. Is that right?
I honestly don't think so. I think you still have, I mean, you do have some somewhat extensive structural repairs that need to be made, but I've seen a lot newer pools in a lot worse shape. It's actually in pretty good shape beyond the windowsill and the main drains and a couple rust spots. From what I can see, just by walking in the pool, walking around the pool, it doesn't look to be that bad. It does definitely need some work, but I wouldn't recommend a full replacement.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else from the board?
Yeah, it's Dave.
Hi, David Vogel, welcome.
Thank you. Kyle, so you don't recommend a full replacement, but it does seem like the repairs, the cost of these repairs is going to be extremely high. My concern would be what is the rationale behind putting that much money into something if, in fact, it's truly near the end of its life? I mean, if the life of these things, if it's already beyond the normal expected life, are we just starting to see, you mentioned that old pool, lots of things start to go wrong. Is this just going to be the first in a string of things that we're going to have to deal with every single year?
I apologize. My phone started ringing in the beginning, so I missed the beginning part of that. But I think you were asking, you know, I said we don't I wouldn't recommend a full replacement, but these things are starting to pile up, and in our cost estimate, it was just under, I think, it was a substantial number, and that, how do you justify that number over a full replacement? Is that kind of your question?
Yeah, I mean, it's an $865,000 bill that you put on this, and if in fact we are looking at a pool that, as you said, is just going to start to have more and more problems over time, I don't want to see that happening, every year.
Yeah, and so a lot of these recommendations, or all of these recommendations, would help prolong the pool's life. So, I mean, from what we could see when we went out, the two or well, I don't know if twice, my boss also went out there once, but in those couple visits, from what we could see, it wasn't devastating rehab work that needs to be done. You need to cut out sections of your pool wall to repatch and refix them, maybe add in some more rebar, fix some of your decking, and if you can eliminate this water migration in areas where it shouldn't be, I think you can resolve a lot of your issues going forward. Nice thing about an indoor pool is you don't have the elements really working against you. You're enclosed. You're only really dealing with the chlorinated water that's within your pool. I don't know if that really answers your question.
So, I mean, to the extent you can possibly, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else?
Well, given that, if we were to spend the $800,000, I realize you don't have a crystal ball, but I mean, in your estimate, how much life can we expect out of this pool? And what would you estimate a replacement cost would be to do a full replacement of such a pool?
So if you weren't to do, essentially, let's say you replace the filters and get the pool back up and running, it's hard to say without knowing how damaging the structural damage is, or how long it's been like that. I mean, I would say roughly 2, maybe 3 years before you could run into a serious issue. And that's doing no work beyond replacing the filters and getting the pumps and the whole recirculation system up and running. Now, if you were to do some of the rehab work, depending on which couple items you pick, or maybe you pick all of them, you could easily add 10 to 15 years onto the pool's life. Now, to do the pool would be most likely out of commission for a year to get that work done, depending on how much work you are having done. And if you were to do a full replacement, it would also most likely be down for a full year to do that work, provided there's no other building impact. It doesn't, provided that it doesn't impact the building as well, because that could add time onto that. But for this cost-wise, to do a full replacement, you're most likely well over $2 million.
Anyone
Probably
else?
4.
So,
Okay, so I'd like to,
yeah, I was just gonna ask about timing. You mentioned, replacement of the filter. If we were to move forward on that now, that doesn't preclude us from continuing to consider the larger project, and then potentially trying to line up funding for that, because we do have some building projects, larger costs we may be able to bond. So if we just started right now with the filter, how quickly could we have water back in the pool and start using it again? And I think I heard you say about maybe 18 months or 2 years worth of use we could expect. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. So if you, I mean, it would only take as long as it takes to fill the pool and install the new filter and piping to get that up and running again. provided you're not doing any of the other rehab work. But yeah, that is correct. So if you were to get the pool up and running, we are estimating roughly 2 to 3 years of use before you see any significant
Right.
or yeah, any real damage or noticeable effects.
Okay, so,
I'd like to suggest, first of all, thank you, Kyle, for this very informative report and also being with us tonight. I'd like to also thank our wonderful staff who've kept this pool running under all of the,
Let's make one comment.
yep.
Yeah, so Kyle, what's your estimate on replacing the filters in terms of
Just
cost?
the filters.
So, it's right now your biggest enemy is the time lead to get equipment. That's really just all you need to do is place them and pipe them. It's a couple. Someone could do it in a week or two, and then you would need to also fill the pool. So it depends on
'Cause it's
who
like-
you hire to do the work and how fast they can get the filters.
If I remember correctly, the cost to replace the filters is about $80,000. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that's the quote you guys sent me. Yep.
Right. And I think they're 2 months, easily 2 months for delivery.
We also have to identify
Not to
the funding
mention-
source, right?
We have to
How
fund
we
them,
fund
we
it.
have to bid the products, we have to,
Yep.
so it's probably 3 months and $85,000.
So
I just want to mention.
I think the easiest thing to at least examine that would be suggest that we take this report to our new Beecher committee, if you'd be willing to accept that, and get more information on the different options, and then come back to the board as soon as possible with what you think would be the best recommendations. I did speak with Kyle yesterday, and he did agree to come to your committee if that would be helpful. I think you have a meeting tomorrow morning to begin to review it, so that's timely. And I don't know if this is an option for the pool users of the pool, but given that even if it's a few months, maybe the JCC would be willing to help. I could speak with Andrea, and I know we have pool people here in the audience. I think it's hard with masks. Hi, pool people, but maybe we could help facilitate that so that at least there's something, an option for the folks that do use the pool in the meantime. Good. Yeah. So let me know if I can help with, any facilitating, or just maybe speak with Andrea directly to reach out to the JCC. They'd, I'm sure, welcome. So, and maybe the Woodbridge Aquatic Club folks, because this has got to be disappointing. Oh, sorry, David, I didn't know.
That's okay. No. So, in your presentation, you have a number of structural issues. So my question is, generally when you start repairing things, you run into more issues than you can tell on the surface. So is that $850,000 a kind of a worst case scenario, or is that what you just see now?
Yeah, so that number includes what we saw, and then for instances like the windowsill and the areas of tile within the pool where you see the little rust marks, we've included, let's say we called out a 2 foot by 2 foot area. In our estimate, we included either a 3 foot or a 4 foot by 4 foot area. So we did add in some, I guess, quote unquote fluff. But for the most part, I mean, all of the equipment should be pretty close to what you would, the cost you would receive from a contractor. But as far as structural issues, we did add in a little wiggle room there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So without further ado, we'll refer this to you guys for tomorrow morning's agenda, and thank you, and stay tuned. Thank you, Kyle.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay, can we pop on the lights again? I'm going blind here. Thanks, Tony. Whoa. Okay, we have public comment at 6, so why don't we keep going, because we've got 20 minutes, and we'll move to item 6, the Administrative Officer Director of Finance Report. And action is appropriate, and I will call on Tony to give us the update on the monthly report first.
Beth,
Yep.
it's Dave Vogel.
Hi, David.
It is interesting that I don't think that the school board, that our Woodbridge School Board is thinking that this is really a school issue because it's physical plant, and it doesn't really relate to anything that is, school, right? I mean, it's kind of more extracurricular or something than it is school. So it'll be interesting to see what they have to say about it when you pass it on to them.
Okay,
Yeah, so David, we are meeting as the Beecher Building Committee tomorrow, and we have representatives from Beecher who could probably give us their input there or prepare to bring input back. Our building committee would then make a recommendation back to the Board of Selectmen once we have all the information.
Thank you.
thank you, David. Okay, Tony, take it away.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I have the financial report for the first quarter of the fiscal year, which is an estimated surplus of $280,000. This would leave us with, each year in this current budget, we have a fund balance appropriation of $400,000. So that would leave us with a slight reduction in our fund balance at the end of the year of $115,000. Or just under 14% of our annual expenses. That's 13.9%. Really, there's only two issues to speak of for so far in the year. The first is interest income, which many of you can probably have seen also increasing in the short-term rate has increased our earnings rate. On the opposite side of that coin, it also increases our borrowing rate. So in this particular time, we don't have anything to borrow, but our interest rate on our earnings is at an average of 2.25%. Just for reference, when we last year at this time it was 0.1%. So you can see the difference, 0.1% versus 2.25%. It's a significant difference. And even when we did the budget, it was about 0.8%. So it's just really ramped up in the last few months. As a result, that'll generate a surplus in our interest income budget. The other item is the Amity Regional School District contribution for the year, and that will generate a surplus of $134,000. As you are all aware, we adopted our budget with their original request or original budget adopted by the board, and after two failed referendum, they finally passed a budget. It was less than what we had in our budget. So those are the sort of two major items we have so far this year.
Tony, can I ask you a question? When we talk about Amity, this does not count the money that they had unexpended on June 30th, which I understand to be about $600,000-$700,000.
That's correct.
So do you have any sense from them yet, or is it to be determined whether they're going to take that off the bill that they send to each town?
I haven't heard as far as so when we budget for the Amity surplus in our budget, we include in our budget the surplus funds that were already returned to us.
From last year.
From the previous year, right? So for the 22-23 budget, those are funds from 2021. Right, so their fiscal year 2021, we received the money probably in January of 2022, and then we include that in our 22-23 budget. So we do not have a budget issue if they do not return funds. What that will do, however, is in next year's budget, we will not have the $600,000 that we had in this year's budget on our revenue side of the budget. Whether or not they reduce their budget with it, I'm not sure.
So you book as revenue in this current budget the money that we got returned last
Correct.
January?
Correct.
Okay, so you see it as revenue? Yeah.
Right. We book it as a revenue.
So we won't know
And
yet
that revenue
until-
goes to offset taxes because that's less you have to collect in taxes.
Right, so
Right.
if the same process takes place at Amity, they'll book revenue with their unexpended
Right, that's my
funds,
guess.
then
And then reduce
we
our
will know less,
contribution.
But we don't know yet.
Right.
Okay. We'll stay tuned.
Okay.
Any other questions for Tony on the monthly report? No. David? Vogel? Okay. Next item is funding requests, and you have in your packet, the first is a line item transfer number 2223-08 in the amount of $8,250. Tony, would you like to explain this
Sure.
quickly? Thank you.
This is for a traffic review of the Woodbridge Residential Village development down in, on Bradley Road. And the applicant pays the fees, and then we hire the professional. So this is money from the applicant. And they pay, that right. But, so they're paying essentially for our review.
Good.
Right.
So I will move acceptance of line item transfer number 2223-08 in the amount of $8,250. Is there a second? Thank you, Paul. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Tony. Next one is request for funding number 2223-09 in the amount of $5,980. Funds request to repair the generator located at 1919 Litchfield Turnpike that services the radio system. There is a memo in your packet from Chief Rowland. This money will be coming from contingency to the communications radio line item. I guess I'll move acceptance of the line request for funding 2223-09 in the amount of $5,980. Are there any questions or comments on this? Tony, you have any?
No.
Yep.
Second?
You have a question?
No, just
Oh.
seconding your motion.
Okay, you're seconding it, sorry. Okay. This is all brand new after 2.5 years.
The generator is 2001? It's not a complete replacement, it's just a repair to,
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, David.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving along, I'm watching the clock, I promise. Next one is request for funding number 2223-10, amount of $8,875. We have a presenter, so if it's okay with the board, I would ask that we hold on to this until the presentation number, under item number 8, if that would be okay with everyone? Everyone okay with that? Good. Then we can, so remind me to do it at the end, I
will,
don't
yeah.
forget it.
right.
Thank you. And wonderful timing, we have with us our police chief for the next one, which is line item transfer number 2223-11 in the amount of $22,553. This is funds for the purchase of police body and in-car dash cameras. Would you like to come up in case we have any questions? Thank you for masking up.
So there are two
And-
parts to this. This is
Yep.
the funding for, for year one of the in-car and dash camera system. And then there's the purchasing piece, which is a bid waiver to use a national purchasing contract.
We talked about this at last month's Board of Selectmen
Right.
meeting, which we were virtual, so this is exciting. Does anyone have any questions on this for the chief? Wow, okay.
So I had a quick question about funding. It's coming
Okay.
from capital non-recurring from the old Beecher construction project, is that right?
No, that's a good question. That's coming from the removal of the oil tanks.
Oh, that construction.
Right.
Okay.
So we had some funds left over from that project,
Alright.
and it wasn't as extensive as we thought, so, yeah,
That makes more sense.
yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, any other questions? David? No, okay. I will move acceptance of line item transfer number 2223-11 in the amount of $22,553. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'll call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, David. Thank you, Chief, for joining us. Hi.
Might as well stay there.
Yep. Next on the agenda is bid waiver. Is that right?
Mhm.
Okay, I don't have any, what do I have in my packet here related to that?
Is that all?
It is not under my, I don't have it in my packet, I'm sorry. Nope.
There's a, information about the current rates.
Okay, wait a minute, is this deposit summary stuff?
No, that's for the, cameras.
Yep, okay. There's nothing in my packet under bid waiver that I can see.
I think maybe right after those 2 pages you've got on top though.
No. Not that I can see.
Oh,
Oh.
you know what, it looks like in between 2 pages. with
It's
that
where?
logo. In between 2 of the finance pages. So you've got like an invoice for the logo at the top.
Wait a minute, funding request, Axon body worn camera system?
Yeah.
No, is that it?
It starts with memo.
Police commission,
See, if we all had our computers.
Do you
We stopped
have
being
it?
digital.
So.
go
it-
ahead.
Okay, so the,
All
it's
confused.
just an update on the, gas rates. So the current gas, because if you remember last meeting,
Wait a
we,
minute, what about the bid waiver for,
that's, well, next on the agenda is lock-in natural gas.
oh, okay, and then we're gonna do the bid waiver.
Oh,
Okay, that's why, all
It's
right.
out of order in the packet.
That's the problem,
Oh.
okay.
Okay,
I have the gas rates.
yeah, that's the one, right,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm so confused because we're in person. Okay, so go ahead, Tony, take it
Okay.
away.
So, let me get there.
No worries.
So, as you can see by your memo, I just wanted to update the gas rates. So, just this here for just a minute.
Sure.
So the current rates for, say, a 30-month fixed is $15.71. That would be the lock-in for 30 months. If you recall, last month they were like 17, so they've come down a little. They're still not great. And then below is just a table of where the gas rate is for the gas, if you were to, float with the gas company. So as you can see, it's gone up in recent months. What that's telling you is that the market is saying that gas is going to be higher in the future because the futures on a 30-month lock-in is $5 higher than today's price. That's just a guess, of course. And so that's why the price is higher. It's sort of priced out 30 months, and so there's futures involved in terms of how much the price will be. So, it's, you could see, it's not an easy decision,
No one has a crystal ball.
right?
The question
Right,
is,
some
should we make a
places lock in,
decision
some
this
places
evening?
don't.
Do you wanna lock in, or do you wanna keep playing
I
them?
think we can keep,
So I know we don't have a crystal ball, but we do
Correct.
have a finance director with a lot of experience. So Tony, what's your
We
recommendation?
won't be mad either way.
so generally, I like to know what I'm paying as opposed to not know. So that's generally my approach to things. This is just unusual times we're in. There's been a lot of happening in the energy market. The oil prices have gone up. There's just a lot happening, and so
So Tony, if we were to lock in, would you say 24 months, 30 months, or 36 months?
I would either do 30 or 36. The other thing we tend to do is if we're in a high rate and the rates drop after the 30-month, you could sort of, it's called blending and extending, where you lock in for a few more years and you blend the rates together so you can smooth out the sort of the impact, which is something we've done previously.
And you have to be up to 30 months before you do that?
Well, so what'll happen is, let's say the rates go down and, 30 months is up next month. Well, you might, or next year rather, like a year before, you might say, well, let's extend it another 2 years, and then the 3-year rate will be low, we'll blend the two together.
From the current rates.
Right, from the current rate.
At the 3-year
Right,
point or the mark,
Right.
okay.
so,
So how are we feeling about
so we're,
Any
the other
thoughts?
thing is you should know is we're currently at $6.36.
Oh. How far are we locked in on that for
That's till this month, actually,
this month?
yeah.
And then,
The next month, if we do nothing,
yeah,
we'll be at, it's mostly small GS rate or GS rate, it's $10.91.
and how long does that last for?
That floats monthly,
Okay.
so the gas company will
Monthly
update
floater.
that price monthly,
Okay,
which is what most people hear, if you don't lock in and you have natural gas, that's what you're doing.
so we have to ask our question, do we feel lucky today?
So I asked you this question last time, Tony, apologize for asking it again, but how much money total are we looking at here? As opposed to, each cubic foot of gas?
Right, that's a good question. I would say probably 70,000 dollars.
60 or 70,000
Yeah.
total?
Yeah.
That's for the 3 months.
No, that's for annually. Is that what you mean? Annually,
that's
yeah.
per year?
Yeah, per year. Yeah. So it's not, it's not like it's hundreds of thousands of dollars or
Right.
$500,000.
Relatively small expenditure.
Right.
Yeah.
So Tony, logistically, if we make a motion tonight, does it then go to Board of Finance and they also?
No.
So it's just
This
us?
is essentially a purchasing issue.
This is our.
Do we wanna
our-
lock in?
We own this.
Right.
Okay.
So that's
Anybody have
So
any
the Board of
questions?
Finance will be happy with what we decide? Is that
The-
what we're?
We
Well, it
have-
depends when the budget comes. They'll have to raise all the gas budgets for next year.
Yeah.
Well, it's a risk. Anything you do.
It's a risk.
Yeah,
Right.
This will
Not
help
doing
the number.
anything is also a risk,
right.
either
The-
way.
The thought of predictability makes sense to me.
I always sleep well at night if
Right.
I know what's gonna happen.
So, if the price goes
Yep,
to
Otherwise, we'd have to
25,
build a budget around a very volatile number.
right?
right.
So we lock in, our electricity's locked in until next year, our fuel's locked in for the year. This is really the only one that's floating at will start to float. So we can either wait another month and see what happens, or we can lock it in.
Worst that'll happen next month is goes to 1091.
Well, that, the price, but I'm not sure where the futures will go.
Okay. Eesh.
Yeah, the law might change substantially.
Anybody want me to make a motion that we see how we come out? Okay, I will make a motion that we lock in for a 30-month fix. That's the one you'd recommend?
Yep.
At $15.71.
I'll second.
Second. Okay, discuss.
There's really no telling where it'll be next time.
Yep.
I'll say nothing now.
I would agree.
It feels like the risk has gone up in the past month rather than gone down
Yeah.
in terms of the
David?
volatility.
I agree.
Okay.
I think we should do it.
David Vogel,
The only thing I will
you
mention
out there?
is, we've historically always fixed, and we usually do well. Right, so if you always
We're gonna wrap
use the
that
same
maybe.
strategy,
Right.
occasionally you're not gonna do well, but usually you make out.
Yeah.
We can blend the results a little bit too, right?
Later on, a couple years down
We've
the road.
historically done well.
We know
We
we
have.
have this for at least 2 years,
We got a little
maybe,
wiggle room.
yeah, 3, okay. David Vogel,
Yeah,
what do you think?
what do you want?
We're kind of all agreeing on the motion so far, we just need your opinion on this. We're gonna go with the 30-month fix for $15.71.
Yeah, well, I agree with Tony. If we shouldn't change horses in midstream now in terms of what we've been doing.
Right.
Okay,
But I don't think my crystal ball doesn't look very rosy for both persons. So,
Right.
yep, okay. So, all right, so with that discussion, seems like we have a motion and a second, correct? Okay. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And David Vogel?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we've done that. Now we're up to the bid waiver.
6 o'clock.
Oh, it's 6 o'clock. Well, it's 2 minutes
2
out,
minutes.
but
We can do the bid
can we
waiver.
get this out,
Sure.
because Frank's still here,
Yep.
right? Okay, so this is a funding request. I don't understand this memo, I'm sorry. Is this the thing that we got?
Yeah, so you,
Okay.
we're
Chief's
requesting,
back up.
so we're, right, this is the requesting, to, waive the, bid process to purchase the, in-car, video and, dash cameras using a national contract. It's, called Sourcewell. We actually used it for one of our public works vehicles. It's actually it's from, Minnesota, actually. And, it started there, and it started with the state, and, it's, now has national, impact, and they bid a lot of items. They have a website if you wanna so
Okay.
see all the things they bid.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the bid waiver, funding request related to the Chief Capiello's memo, for funding approval for the amount of 552.87 from Sourcewell contract for
And
the
it-
purchase of the new Avon Enterprises body worn and dashboard camera system as previously discussed.
And I just want to tell you that the total price for the project, which will be spread out over a 5-year period, is $109,651.95 for the, this is for the.
Is that a 5-year?
Yeah, it's spread out over 5 years, so that's just the first year of payment.
Okay.
As are for the cameras, and,
But we'll get it every year from Sourcewell Co-op.
right, correct, right.
Is there a second to my motion?
And then let's give me the other half, for the in-car is $115,876.20.
Okay.
So those are the two sort of prices.
We have a second?
Yeah, Paul.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the chief on this?
And this came unanimously recommended by the police board as well.
They did at our last, that's been supported all along, but they reaffirmed their support at our last meeting. So, in the form of a motion, so we're good with that.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Hearing no other comments or questions, I'll call a question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, David.
And I'd just like to thank everyone for their support with
Thank
this,
you.
and Tony as well for his guidance, moving through that and navigating through all the contracts and paperwork associated with it. It's a huge jump, another huge jump in
I
technology
kind of
for us.
have to admit, I want to see it in action because it's, the way
Yeah.
it's described sounds quite exciting, so.
So thank you
good.
for that.
Okay, thanks so much, chief.
For that.
That's all set. Any other?
No.
No other. And with that, we are right on time at 6 o'clock for a public comment. Anyone here for public comment? In person? No? Jerry Shaw, I don't know if you can hear me, but do we have any written or anything sent in today by 3 p.m.?
I received none by
Okay,
3 o'clock today.
thanks much. All righty. Moving on to the items in our consent agenda and action as appropriate. I will make a motion that we approve items A through G in the consent agenda as listed. Is there a second?
Second.
And we will vote on that. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And David Vogel?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Okay. And I will just note that part of this is the resignation of Frank DeLeo, and we accept his resignation with regret as an alternate to the Inland Wetlands Agency, and we will make a nomination to fill that at next month's meeting, now that we've accepted his resignation. Next item on the agenda is item 8, 2030 committee, and we do have a funding request related to this. And is Laura coming?
She is,
She's coming at 7 though, right?
right,
Okay.
I'll send her a message telling her that,
Get over here.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. Item 9 on the agenda is an appointment to GATFOC for 2025. We have no nominations for that, so we will skip that. Moving on to the town council's report, Mr. Weiner, and action is appropriate. The first one is the 2023 local election term begins in elected officials, board and commissions, and appointees.
So there are
Take it
a couple,
away.
as you know, the town is going to be having November municipal elections starting in November 2023. The May 2023 election will not be held under a new state law. Every town in Connecticut must have November municipal elections unless a town opts out, and you can only opt out with a three-quarter vote of the legislative body of the town. Woodbridge did not have that, so we are on the agenda for a November 2023 municipal election. One of the things we need to do is to choose an effective date of those elected in November 2023. When will they actually be sworn into office? The statute, and I had an extensive conversation, several conversations with representative of the Secretary of State's office. The statute says you must have it within 70 days of the election. So the November 2023 election and each subsequent election in the odd number years must be held on the Tuesday, the first Tuesday after the first Monday of November. So I think I looked up November 2023 is approximately November 7th or November 8th. So
The first Monday of November is the 6th.
so it's the 7th.
Okay, got it.
It's the 7th. It's on a Tuesday.
So it'll be November 7th.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can choose a date, any date within 70 days of November 7th. Theoretically, every subsequent two-year term will be within that 70 days because it's either going to be November 8th, November 9th, November 7th, November 6th. So you can use November 7th as the benchmark. And knowing what many other towns do and talking to Beth, it seems like January 1st would be a logical point to have all the offices, the elected offices take office. It is the approximate same amount of days as we currently have from the first Monday in May to July 1st when people are sworn in, give or take 3 or 4 days on either side. So it's logical and consistent, and it's up to the legislative body to do it. We have action as appropriate, so you can take that action tonight.
One
And
of the things that I was thinking about was, as we do in the past, we have a charter that requires that the newly elected Board of Selectmen has to have a meeting
Right.
to appoint all the new boards and commissions. And the issue is you have to give the political parties the time to have a meeting to come up with all those appointments. The elected officials are elected on November 7th and their term just starts whenever the date we choose. But, you know, the way it works now in our charter, we have to have that time for folks to have a meeting of the, as I said, the parties to decide, make the nominations for all the multiple boards and commissions.
The charter says that the incumbent board, the new Board of Selectmen,
Has to
is
be-
authorized to meet in June to make appointments that will be effective July 1st, even though those members have not as yet been sworn in for their term. Their terms are on July 1. We do not have the same thing, obviously, for the November election. Our charter is our charter, and we haven't changed that. So that's something that the technicality of that has to be worked out among the Board of Selectmen, and we can do that at any time. But the important thing is to actually set a firm date for when the positions will be effective. And my recommendation will be January 1st. I think I talked to
It
Beth.
starts, so the last day of this current board and the other elected boards that we have now
It's
would be
December
December
31st.
31st,
Correct.
2023.
Every elected official whose term should have ended on July 1st, which is everybody here, will now end on December 31st. You get extended out because of the change. By the way, I was told by the Secretary of State that there are now 168 towns out of 169 that have November elections. One town has held out, and
What's
that's
the holdout?
Union. They have about 400 or 500 voters, I think, in the town. And they're working with Union to try and get them onto the November schedule.
How we
I
said-
might add also Bethany has changed to
Right,
November as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
So we're
Interesting.
current in the times.
Okay.
So if the board prefers to do it tonight, we can set the date January 1st or any other date you deem appropriate, or you can wait.
Someone like to make a motion?
So I'll make the motion that we set the date as January 1st.
For the current ending will be December 31st and the new
Right,
elected
so
folks.
instead of July
and
1,
appointed.
January 1,
And we can do that.
2024.
We can do that for appointed and.
We'll talk about
Should we-
appointed
okay,
after.
all right, so it's
do
just
this one
basically
first.
elected officials. Will begin on, their new term will begin on January 1st, 2024.
January 1st, 2024, correct.
Okay, so that's what your motion
That's
is.
my
Is there a
motion.
second? Okay, any discussion?
So I did have a question about
Yep.
Bethany, because we'll be electing representatives to the Amity Board of Ed. And currently, or the last time we had an election, both Bethany and Woodbridge seated new board members July 1, but Orange has always had a November election. They actually start December 1. So when the new board members from Orange are seated 6 months after the Woodbridge and Bethany representatives, then they have their organizational meeting, and I believe their bylaw says December. So my thinking here would be that we would perhaps write to the chair of the Amity Board of Ed, who asked us for constructive feedback earlier in our packet, to let him know that our representatives won't be available to be seated until January, and then perhaps Amity could put off their election of chair until January.
The January meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm assuming that, is Bethany also picking January 1? Do we know?
No, I don't think they are. I think they're picking 2 weeks after the election. That's what I heard in terms of
Because
just,
they don't have that crazy rule
hearsay.
where you have to meet and do all their nominations, or they just do it.
I don't know when they do it.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
That seems awful fast.
Yeah, they chose 2 weeks from the date of the election. It's
Okay.
very, very quick. But that could be worked out with Amity. I mean,
Right.
everybody
Yeah,
can figure that out.
I think it can be worked out.
In Bethany, everybody's term, just like ours, is going to be extended to 6 months, the 5-6 months anyway, so we can work that out.
Interesting.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, I will call the question, all in favor of, making the starting date for the new term?
New elected officials.
Newly elected officials, January 1st, 2024. We have a motion, a second, I think, right?
Yep.
All in favor?
I
Opposed?
Nay.
David?
No.
What?
No, he said no.
Okay, all right, so it's
3-2.
3-2. Okay. Thank you.
So then the next issue about the election is what happens with appointed members to boards and commissions. Unfortunately, the law that was passed that said elected officials get extended and they're elected in November, there was nothing said about appointed members to boards and commissions. For example, somebody who's on the library commission now's term expires December 31st, May 31st, 2023, 2023.
Yep.
Yeah. So what happens to those people? The Secretary of State says that they treat appointed appointed members to boards and commissions exactly the same way as they treat elected officials. So it seems like, and their initial impression to me, we don't have to do anything with that because they're all treated the same way. In other words, the library commission members' term will be extended from July 1 to December 31st. So, or maybe, June 31st to
Yeah,
December 31st.
right.
Same exact thing as the elected. So that is what she said they are going by. I want to confirm that, but I think there probably is, in accordance with what she said, there's no need to take any action specifically on those terms, even though it's not stated in the statute. It is definitely stated in the statute that all elected officials get an extended term. It doesn't say anything about appointed boards and commissions, but the Secretary of State treats those positions the same. So so you've done, I think, what you need, with the most we can do tonight, but we can you can pretty sure, rest assured for those people considering wanting to be appointed, that the existing terms will be expiring December 31st, and new people will take effect January 1st. So in terms of planning, that's a fairly safe bet for boards and commissions. So that's that. Let's see, what else do I have here?
Just an update on the Country Club of Woodbridge.
Tony has been working on the RFP. I've been trying to help him a little bit, but I think we both agree we need a little bit more time before we come to the board. So hopefully next month we'll have something for you at that point.
Okay. And do you have anything else?
The only other thing I'd like to just report on the cell tower case, which was very, very hot for months and months and months. There was an appeal taken by the neighborhood group that formed against Verizon. Verizon won the case in front of the siting council. The siting council said they can go ahead with their plans and proposals. The neighborhood group took an appeal to the Superior Court, which they're allowed to do. The town entered as interveners in that appeal. So we actually had our law firm file a brief in support of the neighborhood's position. All the briefs in that case have been filed, and there is an oral argument scheduled in the appeal for October 31st, from what I'm told. Sometimes those things go forward, sometimes they could be continued, extended, but assuming it goes forward October 31st, the judge then has 120 days to decide the appeal. could decide it in a week, 2 weeks, but he can go as long as 120 days. So that's the report. Really nothing.
We have an attorney making our
He's-
argument.
Yes, and he's supporting, we are supporting the neighborhood.
Okay.
So
Any
that takes
questions?
care of that. I
Next
think
up
I'm
is
done.
executive session.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Let's go.
Thank you. All right. With that, I will make a motion that we go into executive session and actions appropriate. Number one, pursuant to section one, I can do these together, correct?
Yes, yes.
All right. Pursuant to, section 1-200 of the, I'm sorry, 6B of the Connecticut General Statutes, discussion of pending litigation, Open Communities Trust LLC et al. Versus Town Plan and Zoning Commission of the Town of Woodbridge et al. Next one is pursuant to section 1-206B and D of the Connecticut General Statutes related to 60 Woodfield Drive. And lastly, pursuant to section 1-206C of the Connecticut General Statutes, security devices related to dispatch. Selectmen Paul Curious will be giving us an update. And I will invite into executive session Attorney Weiner and Finance Director Tony Genovese and David Vogel from home as well.
Thank you.
I'll
You're
second
welcome.
that motion.
You have a second, okay?
And all the people you invited in are relevant to all three executive sessions.
Correct.
They're the same
That's
people.
correct. Just
Okay.
you guys that we invited in, you
Yep.
and Tony, okay? And you are relevant, that's it, that's whoever.
I'm happy to hear that.
Agreed. That's who you should always invite into executive session, or only the relative people. So with that, we'll ask the cameras to be turned off. Or whatever. And when we have action at the end of it, we'll get in touch, I'm not sure how this.
We have to vote to go?
Yeah, vote to go,
Oh, we
yes.
have to vote, I'm sorry, thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and David Vogel,
Aye.
thank you. Thank you, everyone. We are now live and out of executive session. There were no motions made nor votes taken during executive session. And we are now returning to our agenda. We have one item left. We have a request for funding number 2223-10 in the amount of $8,875 requested for additional scope of work for placemaking planning study by Peary Associates for the Woodbridge 2030 Committee, and I can report we have two guests this evening. Susan Jacobs, co-chair of the 2030 Task Force, and Laura Peary is also here. So maybe you'd like to give us an update and why you think why we want to do this.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here tonight. First off, I wanted to begin with an update of where we are with the 2030 committee or the placemaking and connectivity grant work. As you may recall, we partnered through a grant award of a connectivity grant with SLR to combine our forces and think about a comprehensive approach to placemaking and to a vision for the business district area. The most exciting recent news, other than moving our way through our agenda, which has been pretty established, is we had a public meeting at the end of September that I have to say in the 30 years of practice was probably one of the most successful public workshop meetings that we've ever experienced.
I'm so sorry I didn't make it. I have not figured out how to divide myself in three.
Yes,
I had
well,
two other meetings.
it can be kind of messy, so probably good.
Gotta work on that.
What was particularly remarkable about the meeting is we started off with typical kind of discussion, small breakout groups. And not only were people very enthusiastic in sharing ideas freely by the end of the night, which in my professional opinion demonstrates a degree of trust and engagement that was wonderful. Neighbors were actually talking to each other. And by our estimates, we had about 50% residents and about 50% district business owners present, which is a really great mix. So as a result of that, and as a result of the enthusiasm and the kind of questions that we got at the end of the night, we thought it might be a good idea to propose one more session where we, instead of just present the final placemaking plan, which was our original scope of work proposal, that in fact we create another meeting where residents can take the information, we can represent the information that was gathered, develop it a bit further, and take another round of input and suggestions, because it's our speculation that based on the success of this meeting, some of those who were in attendance might encourage others to attend, which would be wonderful. And it would give more residents a chance to feel more involved in the process. This is a pretty big thing to have a vision established for the district, and the more input we can gather, the better. And so that was the reason for the revised proposal. So in that, we will develop the information into our synthesis, which is the beginning suggestions of how the ideas of the residents would find form in the district and formulate a vision, test those in a workshop format again, and then take that information, refine it again in our work with the 2030 committee, and then that will feed the final vision study.
Thank you. Susan, you have anything else to add?
The only thing I want to add, I've been to my share of meetings, as you know. Just to emphasize, Laura said at the beginning that it was about 50-50 residents and business owners or property owners. It wasn't just residents who stayed to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody who did stay bought into a kind of enthusiasm and a kind of, particularly the property owners, the business owners, a kind of, let's keep talking, let's keep dreaming, let's keep thinking big kind of mindset. And that's a mindset that we have not seen in great abundance over the past several years. So there was a lot of energy there, and we don't want to lose that sense of energy, or as you said, the trust that we're starting to build with the community. And hopefully you'll see it the same way we do, and let us move forward in that productive way.
Great. Any members of the Board of Selectmen would like to ask any questions from Susan and Laura? Go ahead.
I just had I guess a question and a comment. So I was able to attend most of the session, and I agree with the characterization of it. It was great to see this cross-section of people coming together. Would you expect that some of those folks might attend again, because this is sort of iterative, they would see the next version?
Yes, I would hope so, because I think in our experience, what's valuable about working in the iterative orientation and the way that we set up requests for information is we ask for ideas. Because if we ask for solutions, no one will see the solution that they want, and tends to be disagreement and disappointment. But when we can build consensus through iteration around ideas, and then the ideas take shape based on the professional input and the constraints, like budget and things that will come down the road, then everyone can see their ideas in the final product. So the more that we can have the same folks back, it won't be the same content, it will be developing the content, which is why it's additional work. And we hope new folks will come in and who will be able to get caught up to speed and sort of jump in with the level of information, and we're hoping that more people will attend as well.
So do you think it would be appropriate then, because I know one of the questions that came up is the way the property that was being looked at was sort of configured. It had taken out the section between Litchfield Turnpike and West Rock, essentially, that Research Drive and the various places. Would it be appropriate to be able to include that in the vision discussion?
We actually expanded the boundary to include that. So in the studies that were presented, the progress that we review with the 2030 committee as our immediate work and stakeholder group has already shown that the team between SLR and my office have been working with that expanded boundary. And so we'll be incorporating the strategies.
Great, so if people come to the next one, they'll see that you've already taken that input, and now it's up on the screen.
Exactly,
Great.
exactly.
David or Paul? Any comments or questions?
So you're asking for another 8,000 change. How do you calculate that number? What do you base that on?
We build all of our fees, for the most part, what we call from the bottom up. So we take the tasks that we've articulated in the proposal and we assign staff hours to them. And there's a multiplier rate that's established in our contract that's already been approved, and we multiply the hours of work towards that rate to come up with that total.
How many hours do you feel that represents?
About 160 hours, something like that. And that includes additional renderings, image views. I hope my math is right on that, but if I take the number and divide it by about 150, that's an average number, so forgive me if my math is off. I don't have the I don't have my bottom-up worksheet in front of me, so.
Paul, anything? Okay.
I did have one other question that I
Yep.
thought I called it a question. So our housing committee, we have a housing opportunity ad hoc committee that advises the board of selectmen. At their recent meeting, they were talking about potential changes to zoning that they were going to potentially bring to TPZ. Is there a way to reach out to the housing committee itself and invite them to come? I assume it would be appropriate for them to contribute ideas here as well. Is that possible to do, or do you want it?
Our next community meeting, it is a community meeting.
Right.
We want all parts of community to be a part of this. Now, keeping that in mind, that our charge is the business district. We don't have a charge from this board beyond the business district.
Right.
So my
So that
understanding-
focus may change what you're asking, Sheila, but we hope to see, community writ large at all of these meetings, because that input has value. Just understand that we're dealing with boundaries, just like, there are other
Yeah,
boundaries,
so what I heard from the housing committee was that they were interested in asking TPZ to change the zoning in the business district to allow housing as well, so housing over
There you go.
businesses, et cetera. And I'm assuming that was an idea that was brought forward anyway by other members.
Yes, and we'll be making kind of typological, if you will, type configuration recommendations as part of this, as part of our ultimate recommendations. And one typology that we've been talking about is housing over business, right? Configurations in the downtown district. And we've been talking about within the group in the community meeting, and there's pretty strong consensus around what that would look like for Woodbridge. It won't be 5 stories tall, solid block wall like you would see in some areas, but there would be single volumes of forms with space around them that felt consistent with an image and character that felt uniquely Woodbridge. So within that, we'll be making recommendations that would be wonderful for the housing committee to be able to support or take up, in my professional opinion.
And by the way, it's not just housing, it's
Yes.
housing, it's economic development, it's all the partner,
Right, good
all the
point.
partner
Very good
commissions and
point.
boards.
Balancing.
Most of us who do this kind of work, our charge is right in front of us, and we get the task done, and then we move on to the next task. Our goal, we're looking at it from up here. Where do we want to be 10 years from now, 12 years from now, 13 years from now? What do we want that to look like, big picture? So all of that input is important. It gets I'm learning a lot, we're all learning a lot. We're not implementing things tomorrow the way perhaps certain other commissions are able to do. But all of these ideas from all of these partner boards and commissions have great value to what we're doing, so, yeah.
I want to, take a moment just to thank the committee and you as chair, our living treasure, one of our living
I
treasures.
can't read, what?
I want to thank one of our living treasures
Oh,
for
yes.
your work,
Thank you very much.
2022, yep, and the rest of the committee and Chris. I'm sorry, he was still probably at work or something, but.
I texted him, but he said
Yeah,
he was iffy,
and all
so
the
I-
other
yeah.
committee members, and Lauren, for all you've done, really keeping this moving. And I've heard very good things from a lot of residents who are quite happy about something's moving and in our effort to grow our grand list, at least down in the commercial district. So thank you for that. I'm prepared, if there are no other questions, I'll make a motion that we approve the request for funding 2022-23 10, the amount of $8,875. Is there a second? Thank you. Any other discussion, comments?
Honey, this is coming from contingency?
Yep.
Yes.
Trying to get to the right page.
See, I have a page, so I flipped. Okay, hearing nothing else, I'll call the question. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Okay. And David Vogel has signed off, so it's unanimous. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for coming early.
Thank you.
We moved quicker than we thought we would. Our first meeting back in 2.5 years in person, so
Congratulations, yes.
it worked out well.
Really,
Good.
it's good
I'm
to be
so
here.
happy. I feel happy.
Thank you.
so
Okay,
much.
thank you so much. And with that, there is no other business. I will entertain a motion, non-debatable, to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, and with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. We successfully did this.
Hooray.
Woo!